Mr. Dan Lawrence, welcome to the Man Mission Money podcast.
Thanks for having me, Joe. Look forward to the conversation.
Likewise, my friend. I've been very much looking forward to this. I wanted to start today in a slightly different way. A frame that I love is we admire what we see, but what we truly admire is what we don't see. And I would love to go back to the Dan Lawrence in the age of 20, 21, who's in Virgin Active, folding up towels. Who was that guy and where was that guy at that point in his life?
Oh, great question, Joe. And I believe you know Mark Coles. Mark challenged me on a podcast with this before, and I think there was a 60-second pause because I never really look back. I'm constantly looking forwards and on to the next thing. So thanks for challenging me out the gate with that. Look, I think I was 18, 19 actually. It was a little bit before that. Shy, introvert, folding towels for a very specific reason. Not because the towels needed to be folded, because I didn't want to converse with people. I didn't have the skill set to converse with people at that age. So yeah, shy, introvert, still an introvert now, like my own company, probably a little bit too much. But yeah, I think over time I refined the skill of speaking. I put myself in rooms where I was there to learn and grow and absorb. And yeah, it's been a hell of a journey from the 18-year-old, so 20 years now actually, in February of this year, Joe, working in the performance space, starting as a personal trainer and then going into athletes, CEOs, and where I am now.
Dude, I love that. I love the thought process of like this forced evolution, where there's almost this exposure which challenges you to a new level of discomfort. Was there anything that you were able to kind of pinpoint or look back on now that was a real bright spot for you that kind of gave you that opportunity to take those first steps from the introverted guy to, well, the evolution that you've been through?
There was multiple. There was a guy, Darren Lafferty, and I haven't spoken to this guy in well over a decade, but he was a client of mine, an NLP practitioner at the time. He was uber successful. My 18, 19-year-old self was very impressionable. Used to turn up in his Ferrari with his nice watches. I was like, wow, who is this guy? But really good energy about him. And he was paying me, but I should have been paying him for the information he was giving me at the time. And as I say, he was an NLP practitioner. I went down that route and learned from him. I was seeing him 3 times a week for the I think 3 or 4 year period that I was working with him. So he was certainly one of the first individuals where I was like, okay, there's a different way of doing things that I'd never been exposed to at that time. And that then made me view things through a slightly different lens and climb the proverbial ladder, so to speak, not from a monetary point of view, but just realized there was a little bit more there. So then it made me a bit more inquisitive and ask the right questions. And then there were other steps along the way. Certainly I then went to Virgin Active Twickenham, I believe it was. God, I couldn't even tell you the year, Joe. They wanted the best trainers in the UK for Virgin Active to launch this brand new gym that they were launching. I want to say 2009, but I may have that wildly wrong. And that was a different exposure. That was a different type of clientele. Really cool environment, and became the top coach there for a period of time. And that exposed me to a few more athletes as well. Then did my studies there and went down that route and started working with a few athletes. And there's been certainly a lot of people who've influenced the journey. Maybe they don't know it, but they certainly have. And I've then, over the last 10 to 12 years, Joe, been very tactile about those types of people, those types of rooms I'm in, and ensuring that I'm certainly not the smartest person in those rooms.
What was the gift, do you think, that Darren gave you that you weren't even necessarily aware of at the time?
He assisted with my ability to communicate. He brought a very different energy. I was very closed off introvert at that time, and he was I'm certainly not like this now, but he was certainly a lot more outgoing and a lot more handsy, which I am, to be fair, if anyone's seen any of my YouTube bits. But I joke. So I don't know, I think just a good energy about him, a real likable, nice guy, and a really good communicator. I think that's really been the key. The skill that I've certainly evolved and developed and am not perfect at is the skill of communication, and it's something that can be refined over time.
Yeah, I think that's almost like not the lost art, but I think that is the art. The art of coaching is in communication, it's relationships, it's operating from that person first approach.
Agreed. Like the soft skills and understanding these are just humans. So I'm out here now in Portugal with these Premier League footballers, and yeah, they're footballers by trade, but they're people. Understand the person first, and then you'll make them a better athlete and a better footballer and change their lives. Like, that's really the goal. So also understanding that not everyone is the same. Some people need an arm around them. Some people need a rocket up them at times. So it's really understanding that and then being able to articulate your message and communicate towards a very specific goal. Because you could have 2 ways of doing things. You're trying to get to the same goal. You could say, Joe, you're wrong. How does that make Joe feel? Whoa, that puts your back up. Or you could say, Joe, do you know what? I actually tried doing it that way a while ago, and someone showed me this new way of doing it. At first, I was a little bit hesitant. I tried it, and it was actually really good, and it made me get there a lot quicker. Oh, thanks, Dan. That's great. Let me try that. the outcome's the same, but you've got there in very different ways. And that's the art of communication for me.
Yeah, I love that. We were in Turkey, I think, in 2015. I just did a bodybuilding show, and we were just taking. That was probably the only trip that I've ever been on. I went into the holiday more tanned than when I left. And I read like How to Win Friends and Influence People. And like I think the one thing that stands out for me is like first seek to understand, then be understood. And it's like when you can operate through that lens, it's like people just want to be seen, heard. And it's like when you can give them that sense of like belonging in that space, you can then just open. And I think when you're working with athletes or you're working with CEOs or you're working with whoever, it's like being open to going on a journey or going on a journey with somebody. And before you're trying to address and trying to put your beliefs, assumptions, or what it is that you now want to be able to get from this situation, it's like, actually, how can I really unpack and create a pathway that gives them the opportunity to go and explore? And it sounds like Darren almost gave that to you from the Tao guy to then Gym Floor to then Virgin Active. It was almost like he just gave you the pathway and the platform to almost allow you to express yourself and have the confidence and the belief to actually now know that, actually, do you know what? I've got the skills, or I've got the piece of the puzzle. I'm enough as I am just now. And it's like that was then almost like the momentum that then obviously led to where you went next.
Yeah, agreed. Perfectly put.
And from Virgin Active, there was a bit of a transition phase. You went from Virgin Active to then BXR.
Yeah, there was definitely some time in between. I did the whole thing at Virgin Active, and I think, again, it's identifying your environment and knowing that that environment was great for a period of time. Absolutely. New gym, great. They wanted the best coaches. All of that was exciting to me. And also starting on a level playing field to everyone else there. And then, there was a period of time I did very well. And then I was like, okay, looking around, this isn't really serving me anymore. What next? And I've always had that growth mindset, looking at Cara Dweck's research, growth versus fixed mindset. I've always, believed that if I learn, study, grow, put myself in the right rooms, try and become better each and every day, that I will climb, again, the proverbial ladder. So I had that point of saying, okay, now I'm ready for a change. I launched my own business, Dan Lawrence Coaching, I think it was at the time, and went on a journey there for a period of time. And then eventually, yes, ended up at BXR. I was doing a bit of a split role of running my own business and then working at BXR. I agreed with them. They reached out to me. They were launching this incredible gym in Marylebone, which still is an incredible gym, great location. And they wanted some very good practitioners there. They had medical practitioners, osteopaths, physios, strength and conditioning coaches, and certainly working with a slightly different audience. But I only agreed to work there 2.5 days a week because I wanted to continue to run my existing business. But in that moment, Joe, that really was a key move for me on the chessboard, if you like, because I knew that there was a bigger picture. I knew that on a macro level, I was going to open a lot of doors. I backed myself because at this time I'd already been working with George Groves, who's actually just been out here in Quintana for my retreat, became world champion at the 4th attempt. Great guy. So I knew I was a good coach. I'm not going to sugarcoat. I knew I was a good coach, but I also knew I was in the wrong environment to really enable me to unlock that next level. I was coaching out of a CrossFit box in Feltham, I think at the time, plus going to people's houses. So I said, okay, look, I will take a bit of a pay cut initially to come to BXR 2.5 days a week compared to me taking the whole of the pot, so to speak, with Ryan Business. But I knew that it would get me to where I wanted to go. Within 6 months, I was working with a Middle Eastern royal family. Within 9 months, I'm working with a different Middle Eastern royal family and traveling the world with them. So again, it shows that if you back yourself, if you believe in yourself, and if you have an understanding around your environment and become bloody good at what you do and add value to the person, because that's really the key here, then you'll get wherever you want to go.
At that point, were there any fears? Were there any doubts? Was there any uncertainties that were still going through your mind?
I think there's always limiting beliefs and imposter syndrome. I actually view that in a slightly different way to many, Joe. I think unless you're feeling imposter syndrome and having limiting beliefs, are you really challenging yourself? Are you really getting out of the normative day to day? Probably the answer is no. So when I've spoken on stage, at times earlier on in my journey, I was definitely a bit like, whew, looking around the room, seeing some of the OGs in the fitness space going on before me and after me and thinking, cool, am I worthy here? But I'll be honest, I haven't had that feeling to that same degree for a long period of time. That doesn't mean I'm not challenging myself. Of course I am, but it's slightly different for me now. But 10 years ago, I was definitely having that, but I wasn't crumbling under it. I was using it to fuel the fire and using it as a motivator and a driver to keep excelling, growing and learning.
Yeah, I think especially with the public speaking stuff, it's like that level of like apprehension or nerves or that challenge is like almost like it's a little signal of like, are you ready? Have you prepared properly? And it's like when you do have that, you can control it and you own it and you feel it. And it's like you notice that it's there, but it's like, actually, do not use that as activation energy. Yeah. It's like whenever you notice that it's there, but you haven't done the prep work, That's when it exposes you to a level of, actually, do you know what? Okay, do you know, I probably actually haven't done what I needed to do. I've had my pants pulled down, and I feel like I actually probably need to go back to the drawing board. I now need to be able to really go and double down at developing and working on my craft and getting to a point where I actually am now ready, which I think is huge.
Completely agree. And until you've done the thing, you don't have factual proof that you can do the thing. Yeah. And the thing is contextual to you, your arena, and whatever you're doing. So public speaking, if you've never spoken in front of 10 people, 50 people, 100 people, and so on, then you don't know that you can actually do it. But here's the key part and the exciting part is when you've done it once, whether that's 10, 50, 100, or however many people, you actually have factual proof that you can get up there, you can deliver, and it might not be perfect, but you've put yourself out there to grow. And that's a growth moment. We call that with a lot of my high-level CEOs, that's a growth moment, an opportunity to grow. We had it with Conor Benn, first Eubank fight. Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, 60,000+ people, stepping up 2 weight classes, hadn't boxed in the UK for a couple of years, had never boxed someone of the calibre of Chris Eubank at the time. As much as I can champion Conor, say how amazing he is, say what he's going to do, saying how brilliant the camp's been, how great the prep's been, I've never been in a camp this good, which was all true.
Yeah.
He doesn't have factual proof that he can handle the moment and do a ring walk in front of all of those people in a fight that was steeped in British boxing history with the fathers from the 90s. But then, Eubank Ben 2, we had that proof. We knew he could handle the moment. Now it was about refining the technical game plan and executing. So yeah, I think when you've done the thing, contextual to you, that's where you get the confidence from.
Yeah, I think it's that, like, you behave your way to success. Like, continually behave. You're never gonna feel ready, and the only thing you now need is that evidence. But that evidence initially is going to challenge, stretch, and force it again to that force evolution piece, which is key. If I go back to Dan in that season of his life in his 20s, what was driving that guy? What was he either running away from, or what was he running towards?
Good question. I don't have a definitive answer. I'm an only child. Very close to my mum. I don't know. I've just always been hell-bent on growth in whatever arena I'm in. That's just the thing that's excited me. I haven't got, as I say, other peers to talk to, ask questions, learn from. It's just been me doing my thing. And I think that's the only way I know, in all honesty. And my biggest fear, Joe, is staying the same. That shit really scares me. I love growth.
Has that shifted and evolved from like Dan in his 20s to the guy in his 30s?
I think the skill and crafts have definitely been refined. The knife's been sharpened, without doubt. I've always lived my life a certain way. I've never one to go out that frequently. I'd go out a couple of times a month when in my 20s for sure, and with friends, and had some of the best times, without doubt. That's now few and far between. I don't really drink. I might have the odd cocktail with my partner every now and again, but that's it. So yeah, that's definitely changed. But I think just me as a person, like, I am who I am. Some might like it, some might not. I say I'm the high performance guy. My standards are very high. My standards are very high and have got me to where I am. So I won't apologize for those. And some people might not like that. They're like, oh, no, have a day off, man. I'm good. I love my life. I wake up every single day with the spring in my step. I get to travel the world and spend time with great people and have great conversations. So yeah, I'm good.
I think that really kind of reminds me of a time in my life where I was like and still am, obsessed, but in different ways. And there was a period of time that I was almost like, there was a level of like almost like guilt and shame that was associated with like being obsessed and being abnormal and being the uncommon and being kind of like misunderstood. And it's like the taller the mountain, the thinner the air, the less people that are up there. And then you're like, is it me that just thinks like this? Is it me that just operates in this way? Is it me that just views this world? And then you realize actually, as you start to grow, it's like, actually, do you know what? Like, there is a level of like almost isolation. And it was almost the obsession piece was like almost this, it was for a period of time, like this kind of embarrassment, because you have people telling you like, oh, you need to be more balanced, or you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And in your head, you're like, should I? But I feel like this is my intuition telling me and pulling me, like this is what I want to be able to go and do. I think for me, it took me a while to actually realize and really truly own, like, actually, no, I'm this guy. I am obsessed. Do you know what? That is a beautiful fucking energy. And I think actually it's a great gift if you can really kind of craft that. Of course, with everything, there's a great strength, and there's obviously a kryptonite, and there's a cost that comes along with that. But I definitely think from what you've kind of communicated, it's almost like that obsession being like almost initially seen as like not as a negative, but it's like abnormal, and it feels like you've almost just really owned that, stepped into it, and it's like, no, this is who I am, this is what I do, and that's brought a level of magnetism that's also then attracted the caliber of person and athlete towards
Definitely. Yeah, perfectly put. There's, I think in Australia, tall poppy syndrome, where you start outgrowing your environment and people try and chop you down, also known as crabs in a bucket. And I think this is where environment is fundamental to that, is being unapologetic that you know the journey you're on, you're single-minded, you know where you're going, you know your purpose, you know your deeper meaning, you know your VVM, your values, your vision, your mission, and you're unapologetic about it. And that doesn't mean you're nasty about it. You give everyone the time of day, which I absolutely do. But you also know that the pull one way is not something that you get thrown off course with. And that's the key part, because, for anyone listening to this, there will be times when that pull becomes stronger, that voice becomes louder. But if you're dialed in and know where you're going, then that pull should not be strong enough to take you off your path. And it doesn't need to be perfect. Tim Grover says never miss twice. You can miss once. Don't make it happen twice, because then that will lead into a habit, and then 3, 4, 5 times, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, a month, year, however long later down the line, you've then gone the other way. So I think you've got to know where you're going first and foremost. You're going to get challenged on this journey. There's going to be many a hump in the road, but fundamentally the winners and champions are ones who know where they're going and have the ability to navigate over those humps.
What was your mission? So when you obviously went from Virgin to BXR and you made the changes that you did, like what was the North Star that was in your mind?
I had, and I'll be very honest here, I knew that if you put me in that environment, I had a vision that I wanted to work with very high level people, high level CEOs, very successful business people, and royal family. And that's why I said earlier on, I worked with those individuals within 6 months, because I was very, very clear. And it wasn't like I was banging on their door saying, oh, come and work with me. I just simply put myself in an environment, became the best at what I did, got known to be the best at what I did. And then these types of individuals naturally would want to work with the best individuals. So then I had a conversation with them. I built a relationship with them, and I added value. That's really the key component here. I think we're in a world, certainly the health and performance space, with the online coaching, which is great. We've got a successful online business where the money side is higher than the value they provide and the actual deep care for people. Mine's never been that way. I always believe the value has to come first and the money will come. And that's how I've always been. So though I was tactile in who I wanted to work with, and I wasn't going to meet a Middle Eastern royal family in Feltham, let's be brutally honest here, I just put myself in that environment and added value. And that really was a huge vision that I had. And then whatever door would then open thereafter, so be it. So that really was the thought process behind the BXR move. One element of it. The second element was I've always wanted to become a better practitioner. And the CrossFit box was great at the time. You actually had some really good S&C coaches there. But then BXR was on a different level. You have my buddy Doug Tannehill, who's an osteopath who got me involved. Very, very good. We used to do workshops each and every week. We had to have great conversations around performance. You had Ben Ashworth, who was the physio of Arsenal for 7 years, James Collins, who was the nutritionist at Arsenal for 8 years, I believe. Like, these are top tier world-class practitioners. I'm in rooms with doctors. Going back to your previous question about imposter syndrome, limiting beliefs, I'm thinking, oh, do I deserve to be around this table early on? And then before you know it, you're the one leading the conversation and then having great conversations with people, and then you're getting messages and getting invites back. So I think that's that growth moment, that challenging yourself to become better. Yes, I had a vision for what I said, but also the other element was knowing that if I'm in these rooms and I'm working at BXR, I have to level up as a practitioner. Because again, going back to money and value, if I keep adding more value and I improve my skill set to therefore add more value, the monetary side will come.
I mean, chase mission, metrics follow. And a frame that I used in my previous business was like, get the person thriving, the people and profit will follow.
Yeah.
I think when you operate from that place of like, how can I be as valuable and useful as possible? How can I be my greatest asset? Like then as a byproduct, you then develop the skills, you develop the communication, you develop the energy, and you then become the person. And it's a process you have to be able to go through. And I think it's easy to normalize your norms where you're like, right, actually, do you know what? I'll take a pay cut. But actually, there's so many people that will find that incredibly challenging, incredibly difficult to be able to go, right, okay, I'm going to now go from here to now going to here. And it feels like growth initially makes you feel like you're failing because you're like almost got to be able to start again, rebuild, reconnect. You then feel like, well, I'm a beginner again. And it's like, then do I back myself and have enough confidence to be able to take the next step because I now know the mission I'm on, know the vision that's pulling me forwards. And it's like, right, okay, who do I need to become? How do I need to behave? Like, how does that person need to operate? How does that person need to think? And it's then being okay with now knowing that, yeah, the economics and everything else, like if you hold fast and stay true, will follow through. And I think that's one of the biggest and the most important pieces with any of the brands or businesses or great craftsmen that I know or partner alongside or I admire. It's like they are able to stand the test of time because they can play longer term games and they think and behave in a completely different way to the majority.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, perfectly put. I think Patrick Bet-Davies got a book, Your Next 5 Moves. You're always thinking a few moves ahead, being a macro, not a micro level thinker. How will this impact that? So many people are head down. And I do believe, start where you stand, absolutely, but don't just be where your feet are now. Think about where they're going to be in 3, 4, 5 years' time and know where that is. Because if you know the specifics of who that person is, how they show up, do they have children? Are they married? Where are they living in this world? And of course, I suppose there has to be a monetary number on that, not because you just want to earn more money, but because you can then directly link that to the life of you, your family, your children, and how you want to live your life on a day-to-day basis. As soon as you have clarity with that, then you can reverse engineer and then you put the steps in place to get there. I think the biggest issue people have is they just don't know where they're going. They feel like they're looking through fog. Yes, they say they want to do better. They want to potentially live there or they want to earn more money. But how bad do they really want it? Are they saying that because they've seen it on social media? Are they saying that because they've had a conversation with someone? Or are they saying that because they truly believe in it, that true intrinsic drive of where they're looking to go? So I think being a macro level, bigger picture thinker is vitally important. And going back to the point, Joe, I knew that I had this macro level thought process. So I was willing to, if you're looking at money as a singular entity, I was willing to take a pay cut because that wasn't my main driver. My main driver was to put myself in an environment to work with these people, to grow as a practitioner and also be exposed to just very different people and be able to grow in a different setting. So when you know that that's the driver, you can then allow for the monetary side not to be where you need it to be in that moment on a micro level.
Do you feel like there's been any period of your life where there's been a level of doubt, uncertainty, or questioning, like, has this been the right move? Because I think for me, when I think about it, it's like you look at everybody, even myself, and it's like, whoa, it's like, actually, I did this, and I did this, and I did this, and I did this, and here's the steps that I take. And then when you look back, you're like, well, of course, because I've now got certainty because the stuff that I did now happened. But there's been times where I've been going for a transition phase or a regeneration phase, or I've been evolving because maybe I've outgrown the environment. Whether you're then like, I've now got to be able to let go to then be able to step into what's next. And there's that like weird, messy middle that you go through. Was there a time for you, mate? Because again, like if you look at like what you've done, the evolution of the business, the people you worked alongside, it's like what you see is the successes and the highs. And it's like, I've got this internal drive, I know where I'm going. But it's like when you're lying in bed staring at the ceiling at night, it's like, I think they're the thoughts and the feelings that quite often people are like, again, is it just me that feels and thinks like this? And when you become a person who's almost like everybody's like, oh yeah, Dan's got his shit squared away. He knows what he's doing. He's going to figure it out. You then almost embody that. And you're like, I do. But then there's also that like, oh, fucking hell. Like, was there a time that you felt like that?
I think the only thing I've thought of is, could I have left the role in pro sport sooner to move to Dubai, in all honesty? Because Dubai has allowed me to really unlock a completely different level and actually curate and be tactile of how I want to live my life. I wake up at a certain time, I'll have my hour of power, which is my training time. I'll then, have my team. We've got a team of 14, I think at the minute, 14 or 15. They, I'm a serial delegator. They'll get on with what they need to get on with. And my day is very much set up for success. So if I'd have done that 3 or 4 years earlier, that may have been a move for me. But then in the same breath, if I'd have done that, I wouldn't have worked with however many champions that I work with in that time. So there's got to be a trade-off. And I think the reason I'm in demand now, or as in demand as I am, is because I've worked and got this body of work, not just over working with one champion. I've worked with 30 champions over 20 years across multiple different sports. And though I've been blessed to work with these incredible athletes, I think I've added a bit of value to a number of those as well. So if I had jumped ship and gone to Dubai 3, 4, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have had those experiences, that exposure, and maybe not have the skill set that I have now. So I think that one move is one I thought, I would have liked to have done this sooner, but was the trade-off even worth it? Probably not. So I don't live with any regrets. I own every decision, extreme ownership. And I'm happy where I am. I wouldn't say I'm content to a degree. I'm okay with where I'm at, but I'm always striving for more.
How have you found the transition from coach, consultant, craftsman and somebody that likes to be able to kind of guide and be in control of the situation, to them building and leading and running a team, and then being okay with delegating and pulling back? How have you found that transition?
Yeah, so I think 4 years ago, there was definitely a little bit of a tug of war. Read a number of books like Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, two incredible reads for your listeners. I highly, highly recommend those. And also having the appreciation that what got you to X level won't get you to the next level. I think that's really key. Self-awareness as a leader, a business owner, an athlete, or anyone is really, really important. So definitely earlier on, I wanted to feel like I was doing everything and being involved with everything. Now I'm the complete 180 polar opposite. I don't want to know. As long as my team are A players and getting on with what's needed, of course, if it's not done to the level, then there's a conversation to be had. Then I'm good, because then that frees up my cognition, my capacity, my time to then focus on the things that I love, I enjoy, and are truly fulfilling to me. So I definitely feel like there was a transition. There was an early on time, Joe, I moved away from reading the Super Training by Mel Siff, all the Verkhoshansky stuff, like all of these Bibles on high performance and strength and conditioning. And I'd read them for 15 years. And there was like, okay, now I need to move into something slightly different. I now need to be the leader. I now need to be even better communicator. But I can still take the traits of coaching. I still believe that they're very transferable skills into leadership. But then also having the awareness that not everyone is driving the highest standards as you. And then you've got to really learn new skills of how to communicate, how to get your message across, because that's slightly different. But again, all of these skills were my 18-year-old self. I've been learning them for 20 years. So there certainly had to be a refinement of these skills. And then I've been very tactile in what I've been reading, what I've been listening to over the past, certainly 8 years or so. And one thing I will say, Joe, is every day, and this might sound boring to the listeners, but again, that's, it's all right with me. Every day I'll either read 15 pages of a book or listen to 20 minutes of Audible every day. Done once, does nothing. Done over 20 years, that does quite a bit.
It really starts to compound. It's again, it's built in the boring.
Exactly.
Literally built in the boring. Is there anything you feel as though has changed in your leadership style?
Yeah, I'm trying to, and I'm not perfect at this. Like, my high standards are both a blessing and a curse. My high standards are getting me in rooms and working with athletes that I work with, without doubt, and the CEOs that I work with. We've got 7, 8, 9, and even 10-figure CEOs, like big, big CEOs. But the other side of that, I really struggle to converse and communicate with people who don't have high standards. Really struggle. So I've had to dilute to a degree certain standards, but I won't ever pull them down to a level. There's a certain point, and I say standards. I think standards in communication, it's more so how I communicate the standard, as opposed to just being like, how can you view something like that? That's way subpar. So I think it's really, both standards and communication is something that I've worked on, but I'm unapologetic. I'm not just going to lower my standards for anyone. Like, at the end of the day, if someone doesn't get it, and I mean like an employee now, if someone doesn't get it over an extended period of time, then it's just unfortunately not going to work. We have to part ways. No hard feelings, but you're just not the right person for where we're going. We say, we need everyone in that boat rowing in the same direction and rowing that little bit harder. If everyone in that boat, those 14 or 15 people that we've got working with us, is rowing a little bit harder, that boat moves a hell of a lot faster.
Has there been a cost to having those high standards?
Yeah, I think like we've let a number of people go, and I've had to be very reflective in how I've conveyed a message and communicated at times. I certainly don't go in effing and blinding, but I really struggle when people just don't view things to that level, without saying too much. Like, that's something I'm working on for sure.
And how do you manage, like for me, I really embody this kind of thought process of wanting to be able to have it all. Wanted to be the man, wanted to be the leader, wanted to be the business owner, wanted to be the husband, wanted to be like, how can I be the best that I can be in every single aspect? But it's like when you're operating in kind of that level of like, how do I want to have it all? Again, there's sometimes becomes challenge and conflict that you find that you're bumping up against. How have you found the vision and mission that you've got with where you want to take the business, standards that you set as a person, as an athlete, and then managing family relationships and those other kind of pieces, those other pieces?
Challenging, very challenging. So the business side, great. If we look at 3 buckets that Tony Robbins talks about, the business bucket, the health bucket, and then the family and relationships bucket. The business bucket's been doing well, progressively improving year on year. Relationship bucket hadn't had huge amounts of love for a long period of time. I have a partner now, but I travel a lot, so she's got to be very understanding and is very understanding. But yeah, that's something that I put a lot of attention and focus into. I've had to set systems and structure around that because I'm a workaholic. I'm sure you are as well, Joe. So I've had to have, evenings, no, nothing. If I'm with her, the phone's not there. So it's just little things like that. I'm a systems guy. I've had to put systems in place because I want to be present in that moment. It's not perfect, but it's certainly something that I am very tactile about. So that's that side. I'm very close to my mum. That's been challenging. She's in the UK. She's older. Yeah, even prior to this, so she's got early onset Alzheimer's, and she's just been scammed by people doing some work at her house. So I literally just prior to this podcast had to do a call to try and sort some bits out for her. And I find that's challenging. Going back to some of your deeper questions earlier, as the only child, I do feel like I've jumped ship a little bit. No one can deny I am trying to be there for her as much as possible. I fly to Dubai very frequently. I had her out in Portugal last week as well. I'm trying to do what I can. Every Sunday when I'm in camp with Conor Ben in the UK, I managed to negotiate Sundays off. Training camp, for anyone who hasn't been in them, they just can't comprehend how it takes your soul. It takes every ounce of your being. And as head of performance with someone who has high standards, you give everything. But the Sunday I have to myself. So I'll go from Essex, I'll get a train in, 2-hour ride into central London to see my mum, have breakfast with her, spend a few hours with her, and then come back. And that's important to me. But yeah, part of me feels like I've definitely, I've moved away. But, I've got her blessing. But that's on my mind a little bit. But yeah, in the health bucket, I think, that's something I take huge care with. That's a non-negotiable to me. So I think, the relationship side of things is something I've been very tactile about, very intentional about, certainly not perfect at, but yeah.
I can empathize with obviously the relationship you have with your mum. With exactly the same. She's my role model and everything, and the same with my granddad as well. I was listening to his I can't remember the podcast of you communicating. You ring your mum every night.
Yeah, every night. Yeah.
What is she allowed, or what is she giving you?
She's given me purpose. She's given me the ability to view the world and think about someone other than myself. And I'll be very honest with you. As an only child, I've been so dialed in. I focus on what I'm focusing on. Growth every day, knowing where I'm going. Her and my partner, to be fair, have enabled me that. And that might sound crazy to some people listening, but that's what it's done. Made me really care about someone deeply, and put them before me.
And what side of Dan do they see that actually a lot of the other people don't see?
It's hard, Joe, because there's no BS with me. What you'll see now, what you'll see after this pod, that's how I carry out my day to day. I'm very structured. I'm very disciplined. I believe in what I believe in. I believe in health. I believe in performance. I believe in growth. I want every conversation that I have with someone for that person to come away a little bit better. If I don't know the answers, absolutely fine. I'll go away and find them. What you see is what you get. And that's not, me being silly here. Genuinely, that's how I live my life. My friend Mark Abraham said it on another podcast, Gary Fox, the Entrepreneur Experiment. I had a great chat with him. And he said, Danny's the most disciplined guy you will ever meet. He is the high performance guy. He'll never have an off day. And to some that might be like, oh God, that's all, I don't know. But I don't know. I just get on with it. I love my life. I've been very tactile of how I live my life. Whether I'm in Dubai, whether I'm in London, whether I'm in Quintilago, I'm very, very specific in who I'm with, who I want to be with. And I think because of that, I just wake up with a spring in my step every single day. And that's being honest.
Yeah, mate, I love that. I think if I reflect back, if I use your story as a mirror, for me, when I was listening to that, I was for the last 15 years, I ring my granddad every single Sunday, and now he's got Alzheimer's. And so it's obviously difficult to converse in a conversation. You can talk to him about the 1950s and he's no problem at all. He'll tell you what rugby shorts he was wearing and what his socks were. You ask him what you have for tea and it's a little bit more challenging. So we have to find new and kind of interesting ways to be able to try and just have that conversation, because I think that was the thing that I love and appreciate and valued the most. But I think for me, it gives me stability. It's giving me stability and an anchoring. you know, like through the transition, through the evolution, through like the growth and the expansion and like the challenge. Actually, like for me, like those kind of like little moments and those conversations and that person, it's just like, it's almost like a level of stability in my week that's just allowed me just to open. It's like, actually, do you know what? I'm just Joe.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, there's no like, I have to like perform, and there's none of that. It's like, actually, I think that's probably been the thing. It's like, and regardless of what's been going on in my world, it's just an opportunity to conversate with like no outcome and no agenda other than just, well, there's love and there's connection. It's just, you know what, I'm there for you, and it's just a platform because they just want you to be able to go and progress. And so I think for me, from like my own kind of reflection back, it's just given me so much stability, and I can definitely align to like the purpose piece massively.
Nice. Yeah, perfectly put. Completely aligned with that.
And now, with where Dan Lawrence sits, the 20 years of experience, the growth, and all the different seasons of life you've been through, what's the next pursuit?
So again, being very tactile in how I carry out my day to day. I have a great team, and they help with elements of the business we're looking to continue to build. So we run a high level executive coaching program for some pretty mega CEOs. It's led by data and objectivity. We say, like in business, what gets measured gets managed. You know, blood work, DEXA scans, resting metabolic rate. We've actually, as we talk now, I've got a big Swiss guy in London in the lab at the moment, and I've just had a message prior to this pod from the coach who works with the family. He started the journey at 130 kilograms. He's just weighed in at 99.4 kilograms, and that for me is just like, yeah, that's why we do what we do. And because I was in Zurich last week with the family, just going through last little bit, and this guy's journey's been absolutely incredible. He did a 65k bike ride around Lake Zurich the other day with his family. It's like, that's what we do, and that's why we do it. Instead of it just being a number on the scales, though that was a very specific goal, I've merged that in with real behavioral change, really curating his environment, really linking it in with his children, which has a deeper intrinsic meaning, doing things like running with the family, cycling with the family. So now this is a whole lifestyle. This is a long-term sustainable plan that he can carry out on a day-to-day basis. Though that scale weight was a mega win for us, it's so much deeper than that. So to your question, yes, we have an incredible program for those high-level guys. We also run a company called Built by Perform 365, which works with myself and the team. That's for people all over the world, so they will continue. I'm working on, so I have my athlete consultancy, plus many other things that I won't bore you with. We're working on something at the moment, which is a data collection, data analytics platform with one of my clients who actually had a 9-figure exit himself. So that's something that's near beta test, which will be very interesting. I won't say much more right now, but that's something that we're working quite hard on in the background, utilizing my experience and identifying certain problems, and now we've built what we feel is a solution to those problems that could really help mass market and help every coach worldwide. Again, I won't say too much just yet.
Does Dan Lawrence know what enough looks like or feels like?
Good question. Honestly, I don't know the answer. I don't know any other way than to operate the way I operate. So if I didn't wake up each day with something to do and some purpose and drive and a structure, I don't think that would work for me. And we have this with my athletes. You know, I'll say Conor Ben, for example, who I may be going back into camp with soon after my time here with the footballers in Portugal. I wouldn't say he struggles out of camp. I think that's a bit strong, but he thrives in training camp. And it makes perfect sense, right? You know, you've worked with clients, you work with clients now. They have an outcome. They know exactly where they're going, whether that's a fight, whether that's the London Marathon, whether that's a wedding to look great for. They have that set date that doesn't move for anyone. If you're not ready, you're not ready. That's on you. You've got to take ownership on that. And then they reverse engineer. And then they put clear steps in place of exactly how they're going to get there. Training, nutrition, recovery, mindset, daily actions. So whether you look at that as a quarterly plan, whether you break it down into a 30-day accelerator strategy, what am I looking to achieve over the next 30 days? And then whether you go as specific as saying, these are my daily non-negotiables. These are things that I simply won't negotiate with that are going to get me closer to the longer term goal. We talk a lot about process versus outcome. The outcome has to be set because you've got to know where you're going. But we don't ever then think about it. It's like building a wall. The goal, outcome, build the wall. But all you've got to do is lay brick by brick by brick, and before you know it, you have a wall. Someone's goals are no different. And going back to Conor, the structure he has in training camp enables him to thrive, enables him to push because he's so dialed in towards a goal. And I'm quite similar. We have very clear goals. I'm not going to state them here, but we have clear goals. And that's why I carry out my day in the way that I do. So I think I'd struggle without that, in all honesty. I'd never be one to say, right, I want to exit my business for X amount and I'm really excited to sit on a beach with a pina colada. I'll be bored within 3 days, seriously.
Yeah.
So, yeah, whilst I've still got this hunger, this fire in my belly and love for what I do with who I do it with, that doesn't need to change.
And there's a great book, The Psychology of Money. The Psychology of Money and The Art of Spending, but like two of my favorite books. And one of those pieces, like knowing when to, being able to get the goalpost to stop, being able to get the goalpost to stop moving. And one big thing that I've been working on over the last kind of year or two is like I've been so obsessed and relentless and just constantly just go, and just always been focused on what's next. What am I working towards? What's the next thing? But then one thing that I've personally struggled with is almost like sometimes not being able to really stand where my feet are and actually experience a level of joy and feeling of like, actually, this is the thing that I've got just now, because I'm always too busy focused on like that next piece. Yeah. And then I was also asking myself, well, what's maybe the cost of that? Like, what am I maybe losing, or what am I maybe not able to access, or maybe how could this make me better? Like how, and obviously being able to kind of like step into that part of Joe that maybe does feel really fucking uncomfortable, but I really don't feel fucking easy sitting with him, because it just makes me feel like, oh my God, again, it just challenges me in a different way. I think that's something that I've been really exploring, and it's been so difficult, because when you've been so ingrained in just like from like wanting to become a professional footballer to then that kind of entire like process, and you're just working towards that next like landmark. Standing where my feet are has probably been one of the most challenging things that I feel like I've been bumping up against, that I'm still not probably very good at. And I'd love to know from your side, mate, is that same or?
I'd say absolutely it is. I think I'm certainly not comparing yourself to Michael Jordan here, right? But if anyone's watched the Last Dance, I had a great chat with one of the footballers about this yesterday. He is very, okay, what now? Achieve this, what now? Achieve this, what now? And you can't begrudge him for that, because he would not have achieved what he achieved, and his teammates would not have achieved what he achieved. I loved him, the way he changed that environment. He pulled the likes of Scottie Pippen and co up to his level. He knew that though he was amazing, though he's the GOAT, he would not have achieved the championships and won as a team if he didn't have the team raising their level. Going back to what I said earlier about everyone rowing in the boat a little bit harder. It's the exact same concept. You can only take it so far by yourself. So it's a hard one, because a lot of people watch that and say, he's tapped, he's sick, he's twisted, it's way too much, who are we to say it's way too much? Just look at his mantelpiece, look at all the medals, look at all the trophies. So I think there's a lot of that is absolutely great and absolutely is ingrained in me, I'm sure in yourself as well. Okay, what now? Great. But if you can't appreciate where you are, that could be problematic. I can absolutely see that. But from the conversation we've already had, Joe, how many times have I said I absolutely love my day to day? So is that not enough of an appreciation for where I'm at now and enjoying what I'm doing and being respectful for where I'm at, but also just having the hunger and desire to say, I really enjoy where I'm at, but I also really enjoy pushing that a little bit harder. So yes, I do struggle with that to a degree. Yes, I'm always focusing on the what now. I also do believe in the art of saying no. I've had to say no a hell of a lot. I realized that about 5-6 years ago. Always wanted to help everyone, but it's like, I can't go for a coffee with everyone. Yeah. I just can't, because I know where I'm going. And if I say yes to all of that, unfortunately, you're going to derail me from my mission and where I'm looking to take things. It's not being a bad person, and that's something I battled with a while ago. It's just understanding the bigger picture. That said, I'll always give some of the time of day. So to your question, I do believe that growth mindset and always wanting more and focusing on the next thing is powerful, and it's certainly ingrained in me. But I think, most people do need to also have an appreciation of where they're at and how far they've come. Because, if I look back over the 20 years in what I actually have now, materialistic or other, I'd be very, very happy.
On a materialistic, and if you look at it through the lens of like wealth and money, and I don't think this actually gets discussed like that much. There was, I think, a time where you bought a Rolex at 23, 24, and it was like, I bought this through validation, and like this was the reason. And then it was like, there was years later where the same thing happened, but through a slightly different energy. Has the perception of like relationship with money and what's kind of been the motive from that side shifted and changed as you've been through this journey?
I said that on a podcast, didn't I?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I think a big one for me, my younger self, I'm certainly not going to say I came from greatly humble beginnings, but, it didn't come from loads of money by any stretch. So a goal of mine was to get that first Rolex. For me, yes, But my younger self, and I'll never forget it, I went to Hatton Gardens, passenger orders. I could tell you now, the Rolex is still in my in a box in Dubai. I won't say where because I'm not in Dubai at the moment. But anyway, and that was a proud moment for me. But also, yeah, I wanted to show everyone I had this watch. Of course, you know, I don't know how old I was, 22, 23, something like that at the time. So that's definitely shifted without a shadow of a doubt. My latest watch is something that I'd wanted. And I truly believe, like, we go really in depth with goal setting, really in depth with vision with high level CEOs. And you've got to have reward mechanisms along the way. Otherwise, why the hell are you doing what you're doing? If you've achieved a milestone, like I said earlier about the client who was 130 kilograms, today he's just weighed in, I think, at 99.4 kilograms. It may have even been 98. I'll double check after. You better believe he's going to get a reward mechanism, not just us saying well done, which will be powerful for him, no doubt, because we actually care. But he needs to reward himself for the hard work of a complete lifestyle shift in losing 30 plus kilograms. You know, that doesn't just happen. That takes renewed focus and effort. It takes going back to the 3 buckets. Your business bucket may be coming down a bit. Your relationships may be coming down initially to then go up again because now he's riding with his children around Lake Zurich. So it's having that appreciation around all of that, you know.
And would you say now when it comes to like the wealth and the monetary side, looking at kind of what's pulling you forwards?
Yeah, so I do it for me. Like, I really do. I think as well, look, I'd be BSing you, Joe, if I didn't say that, you know, if I got a nice watch, if I got a nice car, there is an element of I am thinking about that strategically for my business. Just going to be real. As, you know, if I turned up to a high level CEO's house in Dubai in a, I don't know, insert name of not a great car, and I'm charging them what I'm charging them, doesn't really fit the image. Let's just be honest here. Doesn't mean I've got to be turning up in a blimmin' Lamborghini or whatever else everyone's driving in Dubai, which I absolutely despise. I got a nice car, but nothing super, super flash. Also, when I went to the meeting with a client, I won't say who, very high level client, he commented, nice watch. The other day, I bought, I can't remember the name of the brand. Is it like Tumi or something? Like a Tumi rucksack from Lisbon. Really, I've always wanted a nice rucksack. You know, I've never been one for the Louis Vuittons and stuff like that. A little bit flash for me. And this Tumi rucksack was like, you know, it's pretty expensive, but it's classy. It's nice. They do like luggage and stuff. You'll see it now. I've put it on your radar. Anyway, went to the client's house. He had the same rucksack. And it was just that common ground. It was just, oh, right. And then it's, you know, so I am very tactile about it as well, in all honesty. I do it for me, but there's also a bigger picture to be had. You know, if you're in these rooms with these people, closing these big deals, then you got to play the game a little bit as well. And that's me probably being too honest, but I'm just being real.
And have you been through a process where you found it easy? Because for me personally, I've always everything that I've always done has been about me, but it's been about family and experiences and options and choices. And it's been like kind of beyond me. And actually one thing that I've really struggled with is almost like spending cash on myself. It's like easy. Anybody else, like retire my parents, take them on a holiday, do all these things. It's like do that and literally do that in a heartbeat. But then it comes to actually like spending the cash on myself or like being able to do that. That's something that I'm still very not good at.
Yeah.
You know?
I did it recently. So I bought the rucksack and then I actually went on to buy and I had to ask my head of operations, Jamie, who's over there, I had to say, Jamie, like, am I deserving of these sunglasses, right? Yeah. They're like running sunglasses because I run, you know, they're Prada ones, I'll be honest with you, right? Running sunglasses. I was like, do I really deserve these? So I bought those in the rucksack in the space of like a few days. But we've closed some pretty big deals lately. And I don't reward myself. You know, I bought the car, got the properties, got the watch. But outside of that, I live so minimal in Dubai. I have my food prepped for me. And I literally, I don't spend money on gym membership. It's very, very minimal. And he was like, of course you deserve it. So, but I almost even then needed to say for, a few £100 pair of glasses, do I deserve this? And then I had to then reframe and say, I keep coaching these people. They've got to have a reward mechanism. Otherwise, what's the bloody point? We'd absolutely grafted for this executive high performance retreat that we'd run and just completed that was very successful in Portugal. So I thought, do you know what? I'll treat myself to that. I haven't worn the bloody glasses yet. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day.
And with these guys, what do you see that most people don't get the opportunity to see?
with these guys
that are
specifically?
operating at the level, the 7, 8, 9, 10-figure guys, the guy that you're telling me about in Zurich, like the guys that you now get the conversation in the corridors and you get the opportunity to now see under the hood. Like, what are some of the things that maybe people don't necessarily appreciate?
They're serious operators, first and foremost. I think many people would know that anyway. They're serial delegators. They have a lot of people doing the small stuff for them, which is important. So it allows them to do the big stuff, the big needle moving bits. They struggle, like all of us, with how they put their time and energy into what bucket. A lot of them are very business orientated. So that bucket at times is overflowing. And then the family and relationship bucket, it needs a little bit of love. So I obviously can't delve into specifics, but that's one thing that I have seen. You know, I don't just build training programs for these people. We go in depth around behavioral change in human psychology, in depth around their goals, in depth of how they need to carry out their day to day, the bigger vision, the wider mission, the true intrinsic drive that goes so far beyond them as an individual. It's their family, their kids' kids, and the future that they want to build. That's what really gets them going. We peel the onion back multiple layers. So they definitely do still struggle, and I'm talking generally here, do still struggle with the ability to pull time and energy from business into family and relationships. But, you know, it's certainly a work in progress. But they are serious operators. They show up each and every day. They don't have days off, so to speak. And I don't mean that in literal terms. You know, they do struggle to switch off. And then we have systems in place and continue to put systems in place to enable them to almost compartmentalize and switch off and not just be Joe, the high level CEO, be Joe, the partner, you know, be Joe, the father, whatever the goals are, right? It takes a different skill set. Your identity doesn't need to just be wrapped up as the CEO. You need to shift that.
Yeah, I think it's easy to have one singular focus, and when you've got that one singular focus, it's absolutely incredible. But then you've also got to look at like what's the cost? What's the cost in the other areas? And actually, it's not about them being able to have absolutely everything at 100%. It's like, how am I just raising the floor? Like, where do I just need to raise the floor? And if I now know that like this is the one pursuit, this is the one thing, and this is now what I'm working towards, it's like, what's the mechanisms, the systems that I now need to have in place that protect?
Yeah, that's the key part, the systems. That's what we do, exactly that. There's obviously an awareness piece that if someone has 1 kid, 2 kids, whatever, of young ages, and their spouse, and they're not spending time with them, and the only time they do spend with them is when they get in a home at 7 o'clock at night, and they're just not even in the room. They're physically there, but they're not mentally there. Well, evidently, it doesn't take a genius to work out that that's going to be problematic over a long enough time horizon. It's not going to end the way they want it to end. So then it takes a moment to say, right, let's press pause just for a period of time. Let's have a conversation about this, and let's identify where you're truly going. And we're not just talking about, you know, getting another 0 on the end of your business or building to exit for 9 figures or whatever. It's okay, what father do you need to be? How present do you need to be? And the S word, systems. We've created very clear systems for our high-level CEOs of how they need to operate, not at work, though we do that. How do they need to operate at home? How do they need to show up? How do they, again, be the father that their kids need and be the partner that their, you know, husband or wife needs? So I think that's really, really important, is systemizing that process. I took something off Brendan Bouchard, author of High Performance Habits, and it was getting to the front door after a long day of work, and instead of just going straight through it, pausing, doing some form of like 444 box breathing just to reset the nervous system and be like, right, Dan the CEO gets left there. Dan the whatever is now taken into that room. And I think that's quite powerful as well, is again, systemizing the process and running the whole life on a system, because unless you have systems, you will not get where you need to go. It's as simple as that. You just won't.
Yeah, I think the thing that stands out there is almost like an intention. Like everything is about an intention. It's like, I don't need to keep doing more. It's just like, what level of intention and what level of focus do I now need to bring to this specific thing based upon where I am, who I am, and like what needs me the most. And that requires you then to be okay with almost like eliminating and letting go. But I think so much of it is about intention, because it can be so easy just to carry whatever's gone in personal life into professional life, or professional life then back into personal life. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, everything's kind of intertwined and become like one. And I do believe it's like, for so long, again, people were telling me, oh, you need to have better work-life balance. I'm fucking like, no, it's like everything is just integrated. There's a level of integration.
Exactly.
Everything's about alignment. And it's like congruency. It's like, actually, is my business an extension of me? Does my lifestyle actually match how I want to be able to show up in my professional world? But then it's also that kind of balancing act in terms of like understanding from an intention perspective, well, who do I need to be in what areas? And then where do I need to turn the dial up and where do I need to turn the dial down, most importantly?
Definitely. And also, who are they to convey their vision of the world upon you? We view the world in different ways. And that's the problem. That's where environment is key. I had a moment many years ago, I think it was 2011, 2012. I had the biggest break of my career at the time working with George Groves. And we were traveling to the San Bernardino Mountains, just outside LA, for a high performance training camp, 6,500 feet above sea level. The fight got moved because Floyd Mayweather wanted it on his card, his final proper fight against Andre Berto at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Like, this is what dreams are made of. This was my summit of the mountain in that moment. And I was best man at my friend's wedding, and I missed the stag do. Okay, set everything up, sorted everything out, played my bit, and I had to miss the stag do because I was away with George Groves. Biggest break of my career, everything I've worked hard for. The people at the time could not comprehend, they could not fathom as to why I was not there. I then went to Las Vegas I went to San Bernardino Mountains, did the camp, the fight got moved. I then had this, oh shit moment, the wedding. I flew back, did my best man speech, spent some time with them for a couple of days, and then flew back to San Bernardino Mountains and then eventually Las Vegas for the fight. And I knew that everyone was talking whatever behind my back. They were younger, fine. I had a moment in Ushuaia and Ibiza 4 or 5 years later, and I was on the island for having a bit of me time. I went by myself. They'd all gone with their partners on the other side of the island. I thought, look, I'm going to make an effort and go and see them, which I'm really glad I did. It was a great day. And they all pulled me to one side and said, Dan, we all together collectively want to apologize. We just couldn't see things the way you saw them then. We just weren't, at that point in our lives. And I never thought I was better than them. I just knew where I was going from that early age. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't willing to let that pass by and just do the same as to what everyone else was doing, going to the pub every week and having the same conversations. And it was a really nice moment. And, we're still friends now. I don't see them that much, but we're still friends now. That's, it was really nice for me to get that almost closure in that moment. But going back to the point of environment truly does dictate outcomes, because if you weren't that way inclined or didn't have the vision that I had, I would have succumbed to the pressures, the pull that we spoke about earlier, to not go away with George Groves and just do what everyone else was doing.
Yeah. Hold fast and stay true, I think is the thing. If you were to go back to Dan Lawrence, the 8-year-old version, what would he be proud of seeing the Dan Lawrence now? What would he be thinking?
Probably the way I am with my mum. Just, I am trying to support her as much as I can. So I think that's probably the most important one for me. For me personally, business, I think the way I show up every day, certainly did you say 8?
Yeah, 8-year-old.
Oh, wow. I suppose who I work with, the type of people, the level, the caliber of people. I think, look, it's nice and great to have this conversation, Joe, but it's nice for me to press pause and actually reflect a little bit as well and see how far I've come. And I've had some insane experiences, like incredible. So to my 18-year-old self, I would have absolutely loved to have half of the experiences that I've had. But I just, probably don't reflect enough, to be honest, and see how far I've come. Maybe because it means to me that it might mean I'm taking my eye off where I'm going. I don't think it is that, but yeah.
And what about your 80-year-old self? What's granddad Dan saying?
Yeah, I think look, well done, but don't always just put business as your barometer. Like, there's more to it. Family relationships. I have a little bit of a voice in my head saying that as much as I'm doing what I can for my mum, I am, could I, from a relationship side, is there more I could be doing? That's part of it. There's a little voice there, in all honesty. I'm not going too far off piece. My dad said on his deathbed, just look after your mum. All right. So that stayed with me. So yeah, that's my one. That's why I'm really trying.
Hey, from what I can see and from what I can acknowledge, obviously I saw you take her to the Ben fight. I saw you obviously bring her out. You bring chauffeur out here.
Yeah.
Which I think is phenomenal. The fact you speak to her every single day, and I think, mate, that's the greatest gift.
Yeah.
I think there's a level of pressure and responsibility that I sense that you feel. I feel as well towards obviously my family, and I take great pride obviously within that. But there's also a pressure and a heaviness that can also come along with that. And it's like, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
is this the right decision? Like, is my energy going into the right place? Like, and I think that's again, like the wrestling match. And I think sometimes you're lying in bed staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m. going, okay, yeah, like, is you know? And I think that's the hardest piece. And I think the emotion highlights just how important that is to you.
100%.
Dude, I've really enjoyed this conversation in this fantastic location. Mate, if the listeners want to go and find out more about Mr. Dan Lawrence, where can they go?
Yeah, Dan Lawrence 365 on Instagram. We've got YouTube now. We're kind of putting a bit of energy into that, a couple of videos a week, which has been well received. I think that's Dan Lawrence. I know my team do that. But yeah, feel free to send me a message, and cheers for the conversation, Joe.
Dude, I appreciate you. It's been phenomenal to watch your evolution and growth. And mate, I've watched from afar for many years. It's obviously great to meet you in person, and I'm looking forward to 2.0 at some point.
For sure. Look forward to it. Cheers.